The moment I walked into Medicorp's executive boardroom that morning, I knew something was terribly wrong. My brother Michael's smirk, the rushed whispers around the mahogany table, the sight of security guards hovering near the door, it all screamed ambush. Dr. Emily Chen, Michael announced, emphasizing my title with mock formality. So glad you could join us on this historic day. Historic. That word sent chills down my spine. After 15 years of cancer research, after countless sleepless nights in the lab, after finally discovering a breakthrough treatment that could save millions of lives, I was about to learn just how historic this day would become. I straightened my lab coat and took my usual seat, ignoring the pitying glances from board members who'd known me since I was a child running through these halls. Our father had built Medicorp from nothing, turning it into one of the world's leading pharmaceutical companies. He'd left it to both of us when he passed. Michael as CEO, me as Chief Research Officer. Balance, Dad always said. Business needs science and science needs business. Let's begin, Michael said, nodding to Patricia Wong, our Chief Legal Officer. She stood distributing thick folders to everyone except me. The board has convened today, Patricia began, not quite meeting my eyes, to address serious concerns about the conduct of our research division, specifically Project Phoenix. My heart stopped. Project Phoenix was my life's work, a revolutionary cancer treatment using modified stem cells to target and destroy tumor cells while leaving healthy tissue untouched. We just completed the final preclinical trials with unprecedented success rates. What concerns? I kept my voice steady, though my hands were trembling beneath the table. Michael's smile widened. Perhaps you should ask Dr. Jenkins. Robert Jenkins, my deputy director, stood up from the far end of the table. The man I'd mentored for 5 years couldn't even look at me as he spoke. I've uncovered evidence of serious protocol violations in the Phoenix trials, he said, his voice mechanical. Data manipulation, falsified results, ethical breaches. That's impossible, I cut in, my chair scraping back as I stood. I supervised every trial personally. The data is clean. The protocols were perfect. Robert, you know this. I have the documentation right here, he continued, pushing forward another folder. The animal trials showed severe complications that were covered up. The stem cell modifications were performed without proper oversight. Each word was a knife in my back. Every accusation was a twisted lie, but crafted just plausibly enough to sound damning to the board. I looked around the table, seeing doubt and condemnation creeping into faces that had trusted me just yesterday. This is absurd, I said, fighting to keep my professional composure. I can disprove every one of these allegations. Let me pull up the original data. I'm afraid that won't be possible, Michael interjected smoothly. Given the severity of these violations, we've already secured the lab and all research materials. Corporate security is conducting a full audit. Ice flooded my veins. You what? Furthermore, Patricia continued, as Chief Legal Officer, I've been forced to report these violations to the FDA and the Ethics Board. Medicorp must protect itself from liability. Protect itself. I laughed incredulously. The only thing happening here is a corporate coup. Michael, what did you promise Jenkins to get him to lie? A promotion? Money? Your own department? Robert flinched but said nothing. Michael just kept smiling that insufferable smile. Emily, he sighed. Always so dramatic. This is just business. You're a brilliant scientist, but you never understood how the game is played. Dad's mistake was thinking you ever could. The game? My voice rose. People are dying of cancer every day. This treatment could save them, and you're playing games? No, dear sister. I'm building an empire. He stood buttoning his custom-tailored suit jacket. The board will now vote on the immediate termination of Dr. Emily Chen and the dissolution of Project Phoenix under its current leadership. You can't do this, I protested. I have contracts, patents pending. All intellectual property belongs to Medicorp, Patricia cut in. Your employment contract is quite clear on that point. The vote was a formality. Within 15 minutes, everything I'd worked for was gone. Security escorted me to my lab, watching as I packed personal items into a cardboard box. My keycard was deactivated. My email shut down. 15 years of research, of hope, of potential lives saved, all of it now in my brother's control. But it wasn't until I got home that evening that I understood the full scope of his betrayal. A press release was already circulating. Medicorp announces revolutionary cancer treatment breakthrough. There was Michael, standing in my lab, holding up my research notes, claiming credit for my discovery. The article mentioned a new subsidiary company, Phoenix Pharmaceuticals, with Michael as CEO and Robert Jenkins as Chief Scientific Officer. They hadn't just stolen my job. They'd stolen everything. I sat in my dark apartment, the press release glowing accusingly on my laptop screen, and felt something inside me break, then reform, then harden into steel. Michael thought he knew how the game was played. He thought science was just data and protocols that could be stolen and repackaged. He was wrong. Because while he'd been learning the corporate game, I'd been learning something far more powerful, the truth about how things really worked, about what happened in the spaces between the data points, about the one crucial element in my treatment that I'd never written down, never documented, because some things you only kept in your head. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah Martinez, my best friend since college and now a senior researcher at the FDA's Clinical Trials Division. Emily, I just heard. Are you okay? I stared at her message for a long moment, an idea taking shape in my mind. A dangerous idea. A career-ending idea, if I was wrong. But I wasn't wrong. I need your help, I typed back. But first, I have to tell you something about Project Phoenix that isn't in any of the research files. My brother had just started a war, but he'd launched his attack thinking he had all the weapons, all the power, all the knowledge. He was about to learn just how wrong he was. I opened my personal laptop, the one Michael didn't know about, and began writing. Everything I actually knew about the treatment, every real data point, every true protocol, and most importantly, the one critical secret that would make the difference between miracle cure and catastrophic failure. Michael wanted to play the game. Fine. But he was about to learn that in science, unlike business, there are no clever tricks, no shortcuts, no way to fake the truth. And the truth was about to become his worst nightmare. 6 months passed like a slow-motion nightmare. I watched from the sidelines as Michael paraded my research through every major medical conference and business news channel. Phoenix Pharmaceuticals' stock price soared. Investment poured in. The PR machine painted my brother as a visionary leader who'd spearheaded groundbreaking cancer research. Robert Jenkins became the face of the science, stumbling through technical explanations he barely understood. Each time I saw him on TV, botching the description of my life's work, I wanted to scream. But I waited, calculated, prepared. The phase I clinical trials begin next week, Sarah reported during our weekly secure video calls. She'd taken an enormous risk helping me. But as she said, science matters more than corporations. How many patients? I asked, although I already knew. I'd memorized every detail of their trial protocol. 50 initial subjects, she confirmed. All terminal cases who've exhausted other options. Michael's pushing for fast-track approval. He's already got investors lined up for global distribution. I nodded, making another note in my encrypted files. And the formulation? Exactly what you predicted. They're using the baseline stem cell modification protocol from your original documentation. No sign they've figured out the stability issue. The stability issue. The crucial flaw that had taken me 2 years to solve, and which I'd never included in any official records. The one detail that meant the difference between a revolutionary cancer treatment and a ticking time bomb. My phone buzzed. A message from Lisa Chang, my old lab technician. She'd been transferred to a different department after my firing but still had friends in the research division. They're running final quality checks today and scheduled big press conference for Monday before first treatment, calling it the end of cancer. Hubris, thy name is Michael Chen. I opened my laptop and began composing emails. One to the FDA Board of Directors, one to the chief medical officers of every major hospital system in the country, one to the top pharmaceutical industry reporters at the Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg, and Reuters. Each email contained the same attachment, my complete, true research documentation, including the critical stability protocol that Michael's team had missed, along with proof that I was the original researcher, evidence of the corporate theft, and most importantly, the scientific explanation of exactly what would happen without the proper stabilization procedure. The modified stem cells wouldn't just fail to fight the cancer. They would trigger an aggressive autoimmune response that could kill the test subjects within days. Are you sure about this timing? Sarah asked during our final call. Once you send those emails, the trial starts Monday, I said firmly. Those are real people, real cancer patients. I won't let them be harmed just to prove a point. She nodded. The FDA will have to halt the trial as soon as they see this data. It's going to be a firestorm. Good. I hit send on the last email. Let it burn. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of controlled chaos. My phone started ringing minutes after I sent the emails. Reporters, regulators, hospital administrators, all demanding answers. I directed every call to my new lawyer, a brilliant woman recommended by Sarah who specialized in medical intellectual property cases. By Sunday night, the FDA had issued an emergency hold on the clinical trial. Phoenix Pharmaceuticals stock plunged in after-hours trading. And my brother finally called. What did you do? He snarled, his smooth corporate facade cracking. I protected the science, I replied calmly, and the patients. Something you should have thought about before stealing research you didn't understand. Didn't understand? I built $1 billion company from your little lab experiment. No, Michael, you built a house of cards, and now it's falling. I hung up and turned on the TV just in time to see the breaking news banner. FDA halts miracle cancer drug trial. Allegations of corporate theft and research fraud. Monday morning, instead of triumphantly launching his clinical trial, Michael faced a boardroom far different from the one where he'd orchestrated my downfall. Medicorp's directors had convened an emergency session, and this time, I was the one who'd come prepared. The facts are simple, my lawyer stated, laying out documents before each board member. Dr. Emily Chen is the sole inventor of this cancer treatment technology. Her work was stolen through corporate espionage, and worse, the current research team proceeded with human trials while missing critical safety protocols. These allegations are baseless, Michael interrupted, but his voice lacked its usual confidence. We have documentation. Falsified documentation, Robert Jenkins said quietly from the back of the room. All heads turned to stare at my former deputy. He looked ill. I can't do this anymore. Dr. Chen is telling the truth. Michael paid me to fabricate evidence against her. The research was all hers. The boardroom erupted in chaos. Patricia Wong was frantically flipping through legal documents. Several board members were already calling their brokers. And Michael looked like a man watching his empire crumble in real time. Let me be clear, I said, standing to address the board. I have no desire to destroy Medicorp. This company was our father's legacy, but I will not allow my research that could save millions of lives, to be corrupted by corporate greed. What do you want? Patricia asked wearily. Full restoration of my position and laboratory, complete control over Project Phoenix, and Michael's immediate resignation. You can't do this to me, Michael protested. I'm CEO. Not anymore, said Harrison Williams, our eldest board member and Dad's closest friend. The board votes unanimously to remove Michael Chen for cause, effective immediately. Emily, welcome back. Security escorted Michael out for the second time in an hour. The first had been at Phoenix Pharmaceuticals when the FDA shut down their offices. As he passed my chair, he hissed, "This isn't over." Yes, it is, I replied softly. You played the corporate game, Michael. I stayed true to the science. And in the end, you can't argue with the data. The next few months were a whirlwind of reconstruction. Under my leadership, Project Phoenix was rebuilt the right way. Every protocol verified, every safety measure quadruple checked. When we finally began clinical trials, real ones, this time, the results were everything I'd spent 15 years working toward. Michael tried to launch a competing company, but his reputation was destroyed. No one would invest in the man who'd nearly killed cancer patients for profit. Last I heard, he'd moved to Singapore, trying to rebuild far from the scandal. I kept Dad's photo on my desk in the restored lab, next to my framed copy of the first successful trial results. Balance, he always said. Business needs science and science needs business. He was right. But he forgot one crucial element, integrity. Without that, neither business nor science can stand. 1 year to the day after Michael's failed coup, I stood in my lab watching the sunrise through the wall of windows. The same lab where I'd spent 15 years searching for a way to help cancer patients. The same lab my brother had tried to steal for his own glory. My phone buzzed. The first trial results had just been published in the New England Journal of Medicine. Breakthrough cancer treatment shows unprecedented success rate. Below my name as lead author, a dedication to my father, who taught me that true success comes not from playing the game, but from changing it. The morning light caught my new badge, Dr. Emily Chen, Chief Executive Officer and Chief Research Officer. The board had insisted I take both roles. Balance, they said, echoing Dad's words. But this time in the right hands. I smiled, thinking of all the patients whose lives would be changed by this treatment. That was the real victory. Not over Michael, not over corporate greed, but for science, for truth, for hope. My brother had tried to play the game and lost everything. I'd stayed true to the science and gained something far more valuable, the chance to make a real difference in the world. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. It's about proving that integrity, patience, and dedication to truth will always triumph over shortcuts and schemes. As I walked through my restored lab that morning, watching my team prepare for another day of potentially life-saving research, I felt nothing but peace. Michael had wanted an empire. I'd wanted to help people. In the end, we both got exactly what we deserved.